everyone, thank you for joining in. I am Ritika Tyagi and I'm currently the head of ambassadors at Break the Ice. Apart from this, I'm also an author, innovator, and a high school student. This session aims to explore the myriad ways in which individuals, organizations, and communities can make a meaningful impact on society. Whether delving into the realms of sustainable development, community engagement, or innovative solutions to pressing global challenges, the Fireside Chat will foster a space for dialogue that inspires action. We have with us Ms. Aditi Arora. Aditi Arora is a development sector professional and gender equality advocate from India. She currently heads Girl Up India, an initiative focused on girls' leadership founded by the United Nations Foundation. Aditi is also a member of the Inclusivity Advisory Board at Just a Girl and has been a member of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust Network since 2021. She's passionate about issues related to girls' leadership and gender equality and has various platforms on gender and intersecting issues, including mental health at Yongo 2021, Girl Up Leadership Summit at Washington, D.C., Women in Development Conference in London, and HistoCon in Berlin. She's also a two-time TEDx speaker. Aditi was recognized by Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 class of 2022 for her work in social impact. She also holds a degree from the Graduates Institute Geneva in international finance and political science.
Lovely. I think with that great introduction of our speaker, we welcome you, Aditi ma'am. I hope that you're excited about this conversation. A lot of people have been asking us to learn more from an expert on how do we get started with social impact. And I thought, who better than you? So we will be diving into a quick fireside discussion on how did you get started? What were the challenges you faced? How can young change makers get started? And we'll take it forward from there. A lot of people have also joined in on our Instagram, and we hope that there will be a couple of questions that will come in later on. So we'll pick through that. So, ma'am, my first question to you would be, what was your personal experience or the motivation that actually led you to, get started and to become the champion and to take forward the cause of gender equality as well as women's empowerment? And how did you get involved in social impact? What was the journey?
And thank you, Ritika. Thank you, Palakh, for the opportunity and for that wonderful introduction, Ritika. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Palakh. I feel the tables should have been turned and I should have been asking you these questions because with Break the Ice, you've done phenomenally well at such a young age. And I think I should have been sitting on the other side asking you these questions. What inspired you to do all of this? But my journey is, again, as I say, it's very non-linear. And when I was maybe your age and when I was in college, I didn't really have a plan. And I feel, and I want to say this as an older generation, as a millennial, that Gen Z feels that time is running out and that everything has to be done today, right now, and that you're running out of time, but you're not. There's and you can make impact at any age that you want. Um, what has been helpful for me is to be really intentional about what I want to do, be disciplined, um, and you must value hard work and people's time. These are some values that I have come to really appreciate in the last 10 years of my career. But yeah, I started maybe in school, when maybe in eighth grade, perhaps. I was in love with my SST teacher, and she was amazing. I think teachers play such a huge impact on your life. And at first I thought I want to be a social sciences teacher. Then I saw Barkha Dutt on TV when I was younger, and she was the first female journalist who had reported on war. And that was very inspiring to me as a young child. When you see a woman on TV, reporting a war, that was very, very fascinating. So then I was like, oh, maybe I want to be a journalist. But then as I grew up, I decided to take humanities. And again, that was such a black sheep behavior because everyone in my family had taken up sciences. And quote unquote, people thought only dumb students took up humanities. And I'm talking about a time which was maybe 10 years ago. Um, yeah, and I studied political science honors at Lady Shri Ram College, where I really engaged with theory, with feminist theory, with understanding how the world really works. I think it was a turning point in my life. It was so pivotal to study all of this and to be in a space that was all women's spaces. I think we don't value that enough. As a woman, I thought it was very liberating. I was able to speak my mind. I was able to sit however, be however. It was very freeing to be in that all girls, all women space. Um, and then I decided, maybe I want to understand more about the role of women in peacekeeping because um, my father was in the army. We are from Jammu and Kashmir. I spent a couple of years studying in JNK. For me, it was very interesting to see how do women navigate their lives in a conflict area. So I decided to do international relations and political science from the Graduate Institute in Geneva, and I studied feminist theory from Professor Elizabeth Krugel, who is the institute on this. And I loved it. It was such a fascinating experience. Those 2 years in Geneva were amazing for me. And I worked for an organization called Gender in Mind Action Program, where we were where we were trying to gender mainstream. Did we lose Palak? Oh, nevertheless, you're here. Um, I'll continue. I think you're back. Okay, great. So yes, we were trying to gender mainstream demining, which really means, when you demine in places like, say, DRC or in places like Afghanistan, where there are ERWs, which are explosive remnants of war. When you demine an area, how do you give that area back to the community in a gender responsive way? So all of this was very, very fascinating. And then, of course, I came back to India. I started working in the public health sector. I did that for about 2.5 years or so. Um, I learned a lot. I came from Geneva. I went to places in Chhattisgarh, and I went to places like Barabanki and Jashpur and Ambikapur in Chhattisgarh and Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, and it was an eye-opening experience for me to see how um, it was a research project for the UNICEF, and we were trying to understand how do we support early initiation of breastfeeding in new mothers. Something that we feel is very, very natural is not happening in India. So we were trying to understand what's the issue, and because of that, I was traveling to the hinterland of India, and I saw some really eye-opening things, and I realized this is what I want to do. I want to work with women, whether new mothers or girls or older women. It didn't matter. And a girl up happened to me. I was looking for a change, and honestly, it's a very normal story. I applied for a job. I got the job. And since then, it's going to be 6 years with Girl Up, and I've loved every bit of it. I get to meet people like you, Palak. I get to uh, meet young, passionate, strong women, and I think that really feeds into my energy of wanting to do this every day, day in and day out. So yeah, it's a very normal story.
Absolutely not. I think it's been so inspiring. And I think, the way that you said that you went to the grassroots and then you realized this is what I really want to do. I think that's very, very inspiring for a lot of people who don't really know where to get started from or don't even know how they can get involved in social impact. So I think that is a tremendous journey. Ma'am, my second question to you would be, and this is something that I love to talk about and break the ice with my team as well. So when we talk about inclusivity, how do you actually make sure that individuals, they take the effort to be inclusive in whatever they do in their social impact campaigns or in their social impact initiatives? How do they make sure that diverse voices are included? How do they make sure the marginalized get included in everything that they do? So what's your take on that?
I think, and I agree with you, Palak, but it seems like it's become very tokenistic. And how do we meaningfully engage everyone is a challenge for sure. I mean, at Girl Up, even at Girl Up, right? We have about 760 plus clubs, but primarily reaching out to them is through social media or through our Girl Up community portal, which is online. By virtue of that, we have lost a lot of women and girls who don't have access to a system, who don't have access to the internet. And that will always be a challenge for us, or for any other social impact organization. Digital divide is extremely um, large. The gender digital divide is extremely large in the country. um, but there are various methods that you can put in place to make sure that diverse voices are being included meaningfully. For example, even in a small we are short staffed. I mean, we are a very, very small organization in the country currently, but we've made sure that people of different sexual orientations, gender expression and identity, people of different religions find uh, are in positions of authority, is what I'm saying. So what they say matters. And we work in a we don't work in a hierarchical system, in at least at Girl Up India. It's a very it's not a pyramid structure. Everyone has the chance and the opportunity to voice their own opinions, and um, we believe in co-leadership, is what I'm saying. So everyone, irrespective of whether your title is intern or associate or director, we make sure that everyone has equal power, and it's all about shifting that power. I mean, the whole structure of Girl Up, for example, is decentralized power, right? We have the club system, the club model, which means that power is not residing in this one person, but every club is able to do events and activities in their community and on issues that they think are important, whereas we don't dictate what issues they should be activating for in their community. So that is one, I feel, a good example of decentralizing power and building a movement. So that's something that you can do, right? I guess.
Absolutely. I think I was actually going to add that the entire model in itself is very decentralized. So, absolutely. And we also try to, at our ends, we try to make sure, not just break the ice through all the initiatives I'm involved with young people. I have sense that all of us, we're trying to make sure we're inclusive in terms of gender, religion, age, all of that. So, I think we're on the right track to that. My next question is actually something that you kind of touched upon, but I want to know more about it. In your role, what have been moments where you felt like, this is an achievement or this is a milestone we have achieved? One moment where you felt like this is rewarding, this is showcasing the positive influence I wanted to create, whether as a director, whether as an individual, whether as a change maker. So, yes, what was that one moment? Maybe in the past 1 year or something? Let's hear the recent achievements or moments.
You know, people always look at the big picture. I mean, I would say, of course, the leadership summit that we did was, it was beyond my imagination and how I envisioned it. We had more than 500 people under one roof. You were there, Palak. So many people were there, young people talking to each other. We were able to get some really well-known faces to the summit as well. And for me, that was such a huge milestone. But we often forget that there are small moments in your life that are worth celebrating as well. And yesterday we were at SRCC, and I'd gone uh, into the community after a very long time, because now that I've we've expanded our staff, I rarely get to go and meet our community members. But yesterday I was at SRCC since 10 a.m. to about like 6 p.m. And we had so many volunteers come in, so many Girl Up girls come in and tell me that, they found a community with Girl Up. And I think for me, that is a bigger milestone, for me to see that I've changed, if not changed, impacted the life of one girl. For me, that's a huge, huge deal. So it's good to celebrate the small moments in your career as well. And of course, the leadership summit happened. So that was a huge milestone for me. But so many things have happened. Like, yeah.
I love that. I think I remember the leadership summit and the entire vibe and the energy. Like, let alone the people who were there, it was just the conversations. And I clearly remember people still coming up to me. Like, I remember last week someone posted about the summit and they tagged me and said, that was a wonderful session. And I was like, that means so much to me, because that means that the leadership summit really left something for you to like think about, to relish on. So I think absolutely I agree with that. It was wonderful being a part of it. My next question is something that you've talked about in terms of everything that Girl Up has been doing, which is collaboration, whether it's with individuals, whether it's with stakeholders, whether it's with influential people. But I wanted to know more about it, because a lot of people, and this was one of the questions in the question tag as well, people
Mhm.
were asking, with social impact, one of the most important things is also collaborating with the right people to take that social impact to the next level. So social impact is the key, but how do you build and sustain partnerships and collaborations with other organizations, with other government entities, with people? How do you do that in a way where it's fruitful?
So here's the thing with collaboration, and GirlUp relies a lot on partner organizations and like-minded organizations. Um, Building a relationship takes time, and it doesn't happen overnight. And you can't be like, I met this organization, and tomorrow we're going to do an event, and that's it. That's not how collaborations and relationships are built. If you want relationships and collaborations to be successful and sustainable and long lasting, it's a two-way street. You give some, I give some, whether it is monetary support or technical support or um, just, yeah, I remember in the initial days, GirlUp didn't have a very big community, but we were able to partner with organizations like Youth for Mental Health, which had a huge community, and we were able to bring in the technical aspect of our sector expertise, essentially, building leadership skills in girls. So that really worked for us. And now it's the other way around, because we have a huge community. We're able to partner with other organizations that have more skills and expertise than us. And that's how it is done. It's just as simple as that. And collaboration is key, whether with influencers or with government agencies or like-minded organizations. I think what's important for you to as a head of a social impact enterprise is to clearly identify who you want to collaborate with. What is it that you need from the other organization? It needs to make sense for you. And what are your goals? I don't know if that answers the question. I'm going for the.
Absolutely, yes, it does. I think collaboration is one of the most important things. And the last question that I wanted to ask from my end, because I can see a couple of questions have come in. I've kept my phone right next to me. A couple of questions have come in through the audience. My final question was actually something which was the entire theme of today's conversation, the fireside with you, which is how do young people get started with social impact? Of course, it's a very subjective answer, but I think people want to know that from an expert on how do I actually get started. I know what I want to work on, but maybe I don't know where do I get started. What are the steps that I need to take to actually become, so to say, a change maker or get involved in initiatives which will help me create that social impact? So how does that happen?
See, as you said, Palak, the first step is really identifying what are you interested in. And I mean, if you go and look at the SDGs, which SDG are you most interested in making an impact in? Whether it's sustainability, whether it's equity, whether it's economic development, um, whether it's climate mitigation. Firstly, identify what your interest is. And even if you don't have an interest, particular interest, what you can do then is identify organizations that are working in these sector. So, for example, if you're interested, since I work at GirlUp, I'm going to take the example of GirlUp, right? You're interested in living in a world that is gender just. You identify an organization like GirlUp and you volunteer with organizations. Unless or until you don't volunteer, there is no way you'd know what your skill set is. How can you hone that skill set, and where your interest particularly lies? So there are so many organizations that are working, like Hemkund Foundation, for example. You can go in and donate um, sanitary products. You can go donate stationery. You can donate clothes. I think it's all about taking action and also realizing that, and I keep reminding this to myself as I keep reminding myself this, that change doesn't happen overnight. It requires concerted, consistent efforts. And there is a lot of burnout in the process. But what you really need to realize is that every day taking action is, or being consistent with your intention is very important. Um, so if you can't volunteer, then maybe I'm sure a lot of colleges have enactors, or they have clubs where you can volunteer your time. And it doesn't have to be 15, 16 hours a day. It can just be maybe 2 hours in a day that you can take out and do this. I think that's the only way to get started, is to actually get started.
I love the last line. I think that's what we should name the entire fireside, which is I've always also mentioned this to every person who's been like a colleague or a college student who's, in my class and they ask, how do I get started? I always tell them, stop procrastinating and just get started with it. You'll figure it out, one step at a time. You don't have to be very overwhelmed with it. And I know that's an advice I don't follow myself, but I like to give that advice. I always tell people, just take that first step and then you'll figure it out later. But
Exactly.
personally, I know why people like still worry, because people, when there's uncertainty, people fear that. So people are scared of judgment. People are scared of failure, uncertainty, all of it. So I do understand that.
But you know, the thing is, life is always going to be uncertain. But what you really need to do is take that first step, and
Mhm.
everybody's life journey and life path is very different.
Yeah. Mhm.
If this worked out for me, not necessarily it'll work out for you or anyone else who's watching us right now.
Mhm.
Also, to realize everyone's lived reality is very different. I had the experience of going to Geneva only because I had the privilege of my class, for example,
Mhm.
and I was able to do all of this. But I, someone else's lived reality is very different from mine. So you may be inspired from what I do, but you need to chart your own path, and that is just as important as anyone else's.
Absolutely. Yeah. So uncertainty would be different for every journey. And you can be inspired, but you have to figure it out in your own ways. You can be inspired by what people do, but you have to like get started in your own way. Absolutely. I
Exactly.
love that. I love that. I'm totally going to name this entire fireside chat based on that one quote. But I do have a lot of questions. I think Ritika will be taking those forward.
Okay.
Ritika, please go ahead with the audience questions.
Yeah, sure. The first question that we have is, in a world of social media, how do you think individuals can create social impact and be involved in advocacy through the online world?
Oh my God, and social media can create so much change. I mean, I didn't grow up with social media, but your generation has. I mean, look at what's happening in um okay, I'm not going to talk about that, but you can use, well, am I still okay? Sorry. um
Yes.
can you hear me? Yes. um During the pandemic, for example, we were not doing anything on ground. We couldn't, for obvious reasons. So a lot of clubs were using social media to raise awareness on the issues that women were facing during the lockdown, the increase in gender-based violence, and a lot of resources were being shared online. I think it's such a great tool um, to build awareness, to build a movement. Um, and I mean, it is a double-edged sword at the end of the day because of the gender digital divide, and a lot of people don't have access to it. And but at the same time, I always believe in using tech for social good, and social media can be used to it, it has um it has led to the fall of so many governments. uh it was through social media, right? The whole movement in Tunisia, the whole movement in Egypt, it started on social media, started through Facebook. So I don't think we should negate um, the advantages of social media, but it has to be used with care.
I definitely agree with you. I think as a youth myself, I see that social media can be addictive at times, but if you're very vigilant in how you use social media, you can create a wider impact for the right reasons. So, moving on to the next question. As a leader, what advice would you give to young individuals aspiring to make a positive change towards gender equality and social impact?
Whew. I think I've said this before, right? One step at a time. This is my only advice, because when you start off, you think, oh, I'll change this world, I'll change everything. But then reality hits you, and um, you might get a little anxiety. But I think it's just one step at a time. Take it as it comes and keep doing it. Just be consistent, and be honest with yourself. Simple advice.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So, yeah, so the next question that I have for you essentially is, education is a counterstone of empowerment, and what educational initiatives or experiences have had a lasting impact on your own journey?
And ma'am, before you answer that, I love the way this person has actually framed the question, which is education is the cornerstone of empowerment. So even if you want to like elaborate on that in terms of your journey, we love to hear that.
As I mentioned, Palak, when I joined LSR, right? And I was like, what am I doing? What, like, because when the first time you study feminist theory, it's very tough to use the theory in your own life. But as I've grown, I've come to realize that what I studied has stayed with me, and it's changed the way, like, there has been a chemical change. It's changed the way I think. It's changed the way I perceive my life. It's changed the way I perceive the world. Um, that has been pivotal for me. The studying political science has been pivotal for me. I've done that for 5 years and 2 years in school. But I always believe in constantly updating yourself and reading and learning. And yeah, actually, the answer is in the question, right? Education is the cornerstone of empowerment. Everybody needs to be educated about, and you can do that through multiple sources. It doesn't have to be a degree in pol science or sociology or whatever. Even attending sessions with experts, even studying through YouTube and through different people's experiences is education. So constantly educating yourself is um, is something that I have been doing. Um, yeah. Sorry, what was the question again? I sorry, my brain is a little scrambled today.
It says
Just
that what educational initiatives have left a lasting impact on you? So, what's personally like inspired your journey?
I recently did the SI Leader Lab at the from the Swedish Institute. It's been very interesting to know how um, they've used neurology to understand leadership. How you create psychological safety in your own organization, for example, and how people thrive when they know that they can fail. Creating that is a leader's job, and we studied that for about, I think it was a 4-month course with the Swedish Institute, and it's been a very interesting. I've learned a lot of tools and methodologies to manage my own team members. So maybe you should apply for it. It was an interesting course. Highly recommend.
Palak, you're muted if you're trying to say something.
No, I was saying that's lovely. I would definitely check it out. And I completely agree. Education is one of the most important. I think SDG 4, which is not just education, but quality education to everyone. I think that's what I feel is one of the most important SDGs because it tries to combine everything else. It's when you get access to quality education, uh, that you become aware, and that's when you realize that maybe I need to work on the other SDGs as well. So I think I absolutely agree. Those were the questions. I think that was a lovely interaction. Thank you so much, Aditi ma'am. Ritika would be doing the conclusion. She was really excited to actually have a conversation with you. So we will, Ritika, please take it over.
Yes. Personally, I would like to really thank you. The thing is that, what Palak really mentioned about SGDs, I kind of believe that in a very similar sense that education is the answer to solving everything in the world. And that could mean even, literal people addressing poverty or even like addressing new challenges like climate. And education can really solve everything. And we need education in India for girls because I want to see dream big about their professional life as much as they are told to think about building a home. They should have a something from their from their inside that I want to be this, and it should be big enough to actually challenge other people's egos in a sense that okay, you're a girl, you're trying to do this. And that should be the motto of girls to go ahead in their life, and they should have that confidence, and education can definitely do that. And you have a very inspiring story in the same realm as well. So In the conclusion of this impactful fireside chat on social impact, our esteemed speaker Aditi shared her diversified experiences and perspectives, highlighting her adventurous and purposeful journey and social impact, addressing girls' leadership and gender equality. The Q&A session enriched our discussions, exploring ways to amplify the impact and support of youth initiatives. Aditi's perspectives on harnessing youth leadership highlighted the need for a holistic approach. It's a testament of the power of youth in steering towards a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable environment through projects focused on social impact.